some of the hopes and dreams have inside of me have been uncovered, and you know, a direction has also been revealed and uncovered that's, instead of going out into the world, which I've done a fair amount, you know, I've had kids, I've owned business, I've bought 2 houses, and you know, there's a lot of things I haven't done, but even those things I've been able to do with the support of this school that I'm a part of, that is basically part of life, you know. So certain holes that I might have, like not knowing about the world, not being educated, has increased, and it's something I'm continuing to work on. But or doing physical things. I mean, it's almost like that's who I am now. But 10 years ago, the way I was raised was girls don't do outdoor stuff. They don't mow the lawn. They don't build things. They don't fix things. You know, you fold towels, you clean houses, and you take care of kids and a man. And that's basically how I was raised. And so now, you know, I work in a garden and I'm good at it, and I weed whack and fix things, and built a whole brand new startup garden with plumbing and water systems and solar compost tea, you know, and, you know, gravity fed water, and, you know, just like all the stuff figuring out from scratch with another woman who didn't know any of that stuff either. And so I think those are practical things, but it really connects to a spiritual path, because it shows you the limits that are there in a very practical way, so that you can see how those limitations and concepts that were just kind of, you know, I was just born where I was born and grew up the way I grew up. I had no choice in that. And same thing with the internal obstacles or the other obstacles, like the obstacles to having an open heart. You know, that those types of protections were what I was exposed to and what I picked up along the way just to be okay. And if I get to see in a real world, practical, physical way that there's really not a lot to that, to those obstacles or those imitations, they're basically illusions, they're imaginary, and that can get a taste of the freedom that can come with exploring different ways of being and trying different things and learning about what's in the way to having that naturally. And so I feel like one of the things that I'm in search of now, or hoping will get uncovered in me, is like a feeling of my heart and a feeling of compassion to other people that is natural, that I don't have to pretend and I don't have to conjure up to be with that, but to have it be there, and it's happening, and I think it'll hopefully continue to happen.
I'm thinking one is that it's really hard to see yourself as you are. I have definitely found that the way that I see the world, the values that I have, the priorities that I have, the things that get me to move and do the things that I do, are that I believe in them and I defend them and I don't really question them. And having friends around that have slightly different priorities or slightly different ways of doing things, um, there's a twofold value. One, I get to see, like, oh wow, like so and so can stop in the middle of doing a project and not just power through it, or so and so is really good at saying, like, hey, let's get together and have dinner, or, you know, different things that people do that I am weaker at doing. And so I see possibilities of different ways of being, and so that's valuable. But then it's also the value that I find in this school is that people will actually stop and ask you a question, like, hey, is that where are you coming from with that, or is that what you want to be doing, or how do you see that? And it has helped me to just take 1 or 2 steps to the side of myself and look back and question my priorities, and question not so much is it right or is it wrong, but yeah, have I stopped and reevaluated this thing that used to work for me when I was in junior high, and here I am X 20 years later still pushing the same agenda or still seeing the world in the same way. And so I think that's really hard to do, to stop and reevaluate honestly, and to have friends who can see you better than you can see yourself, or at least raise questions like that, is really valuable. Also, the sweetness of friendship with humor is just, if, to go through life, if you don't have humor in it, and somebody who's next to you able to lighten things up or to see the funny edge of life, it's like that's just a crucial part of human existence, and I feel really grateful for the friends that I have. And that's what I have to say about that.
Okay, can you say something about how you see the necessity of a teacher on the spiritual path?
Well, I see a teacher as someone who's outside of myself. I can have all kinds of opinions about how I'm doing or what I should do or what's wrong with other people. Those are only my opinions. I have nothing except me to that's having input into those opinions. And a teacher, in my experience, um, has my teacher can see me clearly, isn't taking into account my opinions at all, and is helping me to question my opinions and concepts that I've had all along. I need input from outside of myself more than I need anything else, I think, on my spiritual path.
There is something underneath that is natural, that is given to us and is continually all the time given to us, and our work is not to create something. Like, to me, I was trying to create the Matthew, create the superhuman, create the man amongst men, that is running in the opposite direction of seeing the gunk and what covers and suppresses and pushes down the beauty, the luminescence, the naturalness underneath that I never had anything to do with. And that if I can get out of the way, if the the gnashing and the grasping and the need, if I can see that and it can settle down and lay down in the field, then what's underneath can come out. And that's exciting, out of control, but actually has the potential to be beautiful, giving, and the experience of being a human being that can then reconnect with what gives me life.
How do you link that change in you to the spiritual path and getting free, and how do you make the connection to those two things?
I think that if a person is reticent or isn't even willing to address things that either they may not know about themselves, or when they do know it, I see that the basic capacity of our humanness, and if there's something along the way that a person is either avoiding or hiding, or well, let's just say avoiding or hiding, that will stop that person from the exploration of the internal world. Because the internal world, based on my experience, is an exploration, and things will stop you along that way. So if you can't recognize outside of yourself things that are stopping you in having a human experience, there's no way you're going to go internally and have an experience unfold. That, because there is a navigation in each of us that involves knowing that path and knowing the things, the doors that come up, and are you going to walk through those internally? And how can you, if you're not willing or able to walk through those in the external world? And like freedom outside is freedom inside. And what better than to use the life that we've been given and the world externally that we have to be able to have that exploration and gain that capacity. Because when you sit to meditate, if you haven't done some of all the steps that are, these doors that come up, and you've not walked through some of those externally, you'll hit that same roadblock internally, and you won't proceed in a spiritual or in a pursuit of meditation. And I think, I don't know how many people have that understanding, but that's the understanding that I have based on my experience and knowing that, and having walked through many doors and gotten on the other side.
I was really living my dreams, and there was almost nothing wrong with it, but something in me knew something was missing, like kind of the future beautiful scenario that Lynn, my fiance at the time, and I would talk about is we'll sail around, and then we'll end up in New Zealand, and we'll get 5 acres, and we'll have a little white picket fence with roses along it, and we'll live happily ever after. And something in me knew that couldn't be true. It's like I wanted it to be true. I really wanted that to be true, but I knew that that was a small dream. That was just a small dream, but I couldn't tell what the rest of the dream was. So after knowing Justin, I would say probably for a good 1.5 years and applying myself to study groups and methods, and we would take day hikes, and at that time that was like a way for us to get 6 or 7 people together who were interested in the ideas and spend time together. And some camping trips, so much I learned, and I was fascinated. It was sort of like you have like a hungry place in you that it's sort of you're thirsty, and it's like water is getting poured into it, or food is getting poured into an empty stomach. And part of that was intellectual, but part of that was, I would say, mystical. That I learned meditation in that time and would experience some slightly different realities. And I tripped over like experiences that were like very close to the heart of the matter, just really deep. And it's like, this is exactly what I was missing. Mm-hmm. And something in me had wanted to know, is there a God? That was a big thing for me, because I when I worked in the bookstore, some of the popular books at the time were Be Here Now. I was opening boxes and putting them on the shelves like they were the new book out. Be Here Now was going on the shelf. And since I worked at the bookstore, I could buy them wholesale, so I would take them and flip through them. I can't say that I read them fully, but it was enough to kind of whet my appetite. And there was stories about Lobsang Rampa, who was a Tibetan monk that lived in the Himalayan caves, and 7 arrows represented the Native American tradition. And they all had different takes on sort of like other capacities that humans were capable of, other realities, other heartfelt and mystical experiences. Just even being here now is not should not be a mystical experience, but everybody knows it's something we do too little. We're always in the future, always in the past, and that a whole book dedicated that there's something wonderful about being here now. I mean, who doesn't know that's important? But how do you get there? So when I met Justin, he showed me the roadmap of how exactly tools, techniques, specifics on how to be here now. You know, and I didn't have to go to a cave in Tibet to learn how to meditate. I did it right at home. And I took to it like a duck goes to water. And years, you know, maybe 5 years later or so, I had an opportunity to go and talk to the man I was going to marry and try to explain to him, listen, you know, this is the missing piece, and I'm sorry I couldn't talk to you and explain what was missing, but this is what was missing, and I really apologize, you know, but something was calling, you know, so I think, you know, I'm trying to say in that way, it's not a personal story, I think it's a human story. And whatever time of life you find it, or how often in your life, you know, it's just like, for me, it's like I came out of onto the horse race track with a bang. And I think part of that was having so fully lived my dreams, I didn't hold back. So it was obvious to me at an early age that something was missing. And then it was a matter of finding it. And, you know, it's been an interesting road, but.
Okay, can you say something about how tractoring or riding a mower is linked to the spiritual path and meditation?
You know, that reminds me, I always think of this quote in a book that I think it was with Ouspensky, and John Bennett was visiting him, and he was walking around, and John Bennett was really into working for peace, like creating peace in the world, and they walked past this guy who was digging, and Ouspensky said, that's working for peace. And that's always really stuck with me, because our movements, you know, one thing that I'm really exploring right now is how my movements are connected to peace or no peace. And so I was just talking with a friend that I don't know who I am in terms of my movements, because I've gone through life like, gotta get it done. But lately, I'm really exploring, like, what's that space in the movements, and where am I? Am I alive? And it's becoming really fascinating to wonder and to be there for those moments. So I would say that tractoring applies to it definitely, because you could do some kind of a Tai Chi or something, or yoga, but that would be compartmentalized. You have to find yourself in the moments of your life. So tractoring, am I interested in getting it done, or am I interested in the moments of being alive from here to there? That's how it applies.
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely getting slowed down. I mean, seems like getting slowed down is a prerequisite for uncovering any of the natural attributes. So, because otherwise, if you're not slowed down, you don't have the awareness of what's going on inside of you or outside of you, and that's got to be part of the formula. Otherwise, you're just moving so fast, you're skipping over the moments of life, you're skipping over your own experience, you're skipping over what's going on out there. So there's really nothing can happen until you slow down, which I got slowed down accidentally, really, because of being sick. I think it just like held me down for so long that I sort of had to surrender to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but combined with the methods and having some history of how to use the methods so that I could make use of the slowed down, because somebody else maybe could get slowed down, but then they would just go back. So, and I still have, I'm not 100% healthy, so maybe I would go back, but I think maybe not, because it seems like it's lasted a while, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's real change and not just a forevision.
Well, we came from a pure and perfect energy that has us breathing life, and it seems like what a wasted life if you weren't to acknowledge that there could be a way to connect to that pure and perfect energy. And And by my good fortune, I've come across an American guru who knows a way to get connected to the pure and perfect energy, and passes along the steps of meditation and tools that a person can use in their daily walk, in their moments of their life, that can help them seek what's in the way of having more awareness of that pure and perfect energy. We take our breath, and we don't oftentimes think about where that breath is coming from, but that's what's keeping us alive. And it's a good thing when you can come across a path or a practice that helps you become aware of the moments that we are truly alive and why we are and where that life comes from.
How do you see service on this journey in the spiritual path, and how you serve?
I think that the culture I was raised in and the family I was raised in was taught me to have everything be about me, and that was acceptable, that was okay, that I was a spoiled only child, and so I didn't have to share presents with anybody. Everything was about attention on me and gifts to me and like that. So I've just learned that even when giving at first thought seems like it might be a burden, to look out for someone else, to look out for somebody's pet, to look after somebody's plants, to look after somebody's children, to look out for somebody who's ill, whereas my first thought might be, that's a burden because that means there's less for me. But I've learned through experience repeatedly that it's so rich and enlivening and rewarding, and it's really an absolutely superior way of being, is to give whatever it is to whomever it is, in whatever the circumstances, the situation. It's a finer, more fulfilling experience of life, that, like, as humans, we have the gift of the possibility of knowing that experience, and it is interesting that it's a surprise. It was new. It was not what I expected, but it's very real to me now.